this might help some of you restructure not just your day, but how you look at like a typical day. You guys have heard like the work-life balance idea, right? I don't really believe so much in the work-life balance idea. I think if you want something, if you're working towards something, if you have some goals, some dreams, some aspirations, then it's kind of hard to have a work-life balance. Where I think work-life balance, people are more like the 9-to-5ers, but it's working towards something. And if you want it bad enough, then the work-life balance isn't as much of a priority because the things that you're working toward kind of trump whatever balance you're looking for. It's almost impossible to have that balance. But if you're looking for some kind of balance, this is actually the way I structure all my days. This is a typical day, 6 a.m. to 12. Okay, this is my day one. Let me break this down and then I'm going to explain it. So the way I structure my day is I have 3 days in every 24-hour period. And I break it down where I separate basically what my priorities are and my focuses are and my objectives are within that 24-hour period. So the first day is 6 a.m. to 12 p.m. This is almost always dedicated to me. This is my time. Now, again, work-life balance, family balance, personal this, appointments that. Occasionally, things will interrupt the time that I need for myself. But more often than not, from basically 6, and it's not always 6, sometimes it's 7, and it's not always 12, sometimes it's 11, right? Because I get here sometimes at 10:30, so that interrupts this routine that I have. But in a perfect world, 6 a.m. to 12 p.m., those 6 hours, those are for me. I'm the priority in those hours. So the beginning part of my day kind of sets the tone for the rest of the day. But if I'm not 100%, then the people I influence won't get the version of me that they need in order to perform at a higher level. So that's a responsibility that I take on, which is why I always try to prioritize myself first before I do anything else. So the first day of my day, this 6-hour period, this is all me. I'm the priority. From 12 to 8, you are the priority, or we'll call it work. So in that time frame, I'm not necessarily the priority, right? You guys come before my needs or the things that I want. So if it's doing a meeting or if it's training, if it's doing an orientation class, if it's knocking doors, if it's across the street from you, if it's being on the phone, if it's getting deals, whatever that is, I've given enough of my time for me in the beginning of the day. So I am now able to say, all right, I'm good. I've taken care of me. So now I'm going to give you everything I've got. So that basically middle part of the day, which is typically the longest part of my day, 12 to 8, that's where I prioritize other people, work, things that actually make me money, right? So this here just kind of prioritizes my overall well-being, my state of mind, my mindset. This is what gets me paid. But without this won't be at 100%. So you are the most important thing, right? You are more important than your children. You are more important than your spouses. You are more important than your family members. You are the priority, not them. So like you need to be 100% in order for your kids to depend on you or your spouses to depend on you. So that's why you become the priority. Your objective is to make sure that you're good before you do anything else. Okay, so that's why the first part of my day is me, the second part of my day is you, and the last part of my day is family. So we'll call it them. So me, you, them. So the last 4 hours-ish of my day, this is where I prioritize the family, the kids. In a perfect world, this is my structure. But the world isn't perfect. You guys aren't perfect. So I understand going into this mindset, this structure, this routine, that it won't ever be perfect. But I do like to have like a default. It just goes back to the things that you guys do in the field. You have a perfect vision for the day. You know what the perfect day, the perfect area, the perfect weather looks like. And when you have all of these perfect things all happen at the same time, well, what do? You perform at the highest levels. But what about normal? What's the normal routine look like? What about bad? What about when all the things are not working in your favor? So you always have to have a default. So the end of my day is all my family. I'm not afraid to kind of interrupt these lines and step over and kind of mix and match. But when I look at my structure, I'm able to accomplish more because I've set aside certain hours of my day in order to accomplish and achieve the things that I want to do. I get my time, I give you your time, and my family gets their time. And in a perfect world, I try to do this as often as possible. And again, you do this, you move into this with the understanding that it won't always work, but if you're able to separate and really prioritize certain things, the most important part being you first, then your money, then your family, well, that will help you kind of have that work-life balance. And in a perfect world, what he prefers the setting to be for him to perform at like his absolute best. And I'm not going to write it all down, but basically for him to perform at the absolute best, he has what does the best look like and what is the absolute bare minimum? What's the worst look like? And everything in between, okay? So he has his best and he has his worst. So you apply this to whatever you want to apply to in life, but the reference I'll use is exercising. So in a perfect world, this guy wants 2 hours to work out. 2.5 hours, uninterrupted time. His phone is in a completely different room. He's completely alone, and he's just working out for about 2.5 hours of uninterrupted, peaceful time where he can just work out. Perfect world. So that's his best. That's what he wants. That's what he strives for. But what about worst case? What about when he wakes up and he doesn't have time, he doesn't have the 2.5 hours? What's the absolute bare minimum that he can do where he gets just a little bit of a workout in? So he has his best, he has his worst. So his worst day, he does 100 push-ups, 100 sit-ups, and 10 minutes of gratitude work, and 10 minutes of breath work. So his absolute worst day, he does 10 minutes of gratitude, 10 minutes of breath work, 100 push-ups, 100 sit-ups. All in all, this will take him roughly 15, we'll call it, to 20 minutes. I think it was actually 5 minutes and 5 minutes. So the reason why he has his absolute worst case scenario combined with his absolute best case scenario is because no matter what you guys go through, if you have a bottom and you have a top, you know that at the very least, you can at least do this. And here's the reason why this makes sense. Because you know what you want. You all have the idea, whatever it is, whatever category, food, exercise, work, relationships, whatever it is. You have this image of what you want things to be and how you want them to go, this perfect version. And in some cases, you'll get that and you'll be able to accomplish it or do it or achieve it and it's all good. But what about when you're not feeling it? What about when things just aren't going very well? What if you just don't have the time like you usually do? So most people will just skip it. Most people won't do anything, and they won't do anything because they can't do what they want or they can't get the time in. They need more time, so they'll just skip it. They won't do it altogether. So in this scenario, when he doesn't have time or when he wakes up late or something happens or he's got to go, he came up with worst case scenario and best case scenario and everything in between. Because your brain sometimes can't tell the difference between the 20 minutes and the 2 hours. Yeah, your muscles sometimes can tell the difference, obviously, right? But your brain can't. Your brain still needs the win. So when you commit to something and decide not to do it, your brain computes that as a loss. So when you start out the day with a loss, then you will get more losses all day long. So if this is important to you, the workout, the 2 hours, the whatever, the deals, the waking up early, the eating healthy, whatever it is that you're doing, if you don't have a bare minimum and an absolute perfect case scenario and everything in between, your brain can't tell the difference between whether you did a really, really, really good job or you accomplished it at the absolute bare minimum. All the brain sees is win or lose. So you need as many wins as you can possibly get. Because if you have a lot of wins early on in the day, then that momentum will obviously create more wins. And the more wins your brain thinks it's having, then the better you'll do throughout the day. And that's how you capture the momentum even when you don't want to. So the moral of the story is whatever it is that you're doing, apply this to whatever it is in life that it makes sense to apply it in. Have an absolute bare minimum. What's your floor? If you don't have the perfect setting, the perfect amount of time, the perfect scenario, then what's the bare minimum that you can commit to that'll take you a quarter of the time or a tenth of the time? And by doing that, you still get the win. That's the idea. You need more wins. And I think I brought this up a while ago where I said your first deal shouldn't be your first win, or it shouldn't be your first accomplishment of the day. So this goes back to when you sit in this room and you're about to go into the field, if the first deal you get at 4 o'clock or 5 o'clock is the first thing you've accomplished all day long, no wonder it took you so long to get there, because you need a few wins in order to build and capture that momentum. So in order for you to do that, whether it's a big win or a small win, your brain can't tell the difference. So you just need as many wins as you can get. And if you can keep getting those wins, then eventually you'll throw some really, really big wins in there. And again, because you don't know the difference, a win is a win all the same. And I thought that made a lot of fucking sense to me, because I do this with my workouts. If I don't have time to put 1 full hour in, I'll just skip it, because that's what I needed. And when I saw this video a few weeks ago, I realized I need a floor. I need a bare minimum. Because I can at least get 100 push-ups in, 100 crunches in. I can at least do an ice bath. So what I would do is if I didn't work out, I wouldn't take my ice bath, right? But I needed that hour to work out so I could take that 5 minutes to do the ice bath. So these are the barriers that I created for myself. I know the benefits of an ice bath, but I wanted to work up a sweat before I took one, because they do suck. And there are times where I just don't want to take one. So the way that I would excuse myself from it is, well, if I don't work up a sweat, I just won't take an ice bath. But then I realized that that was hurting me. It was affecting me negatively. Because I didn't have the perfect setting, I didn't do all the other things good that came along with it. So I started to pay attention after I saw this video. I started to pay attention to all the things that I chose not to do anymore. And I chose not to do them because I didn't have the setting that I wanted. I'll give you another really good example. In orientation class, when I do a 3 or a 4 hour class, there are certain things that make me feel better about doing the class. If I don't have a chance to do those things, then the class doesn't work as well. I'm not performing at the same level I would had I done all these other things. So I realized that because I've set this bar, this standard so high, and I have no middle ground and I have no floor, I either perform or I don't. And that's not a good or healthy way to move through different phases of your life, performing or not performing. You've got to have these expectations, you've got to set them, and you've got to have a floor, bare minimum. What do I do when I don't want to do it? And what do I do when I do want to do it? Because you've all performed when you want to, right? When you're motivated, yesterday you were motivated. Well, you were motivated, and the result of that motivation and that drive and that passion and that work ethic was 8 deals, right? But today, what if you don't want it? So if you don't want it, what are the minimums? What's the floor? Again, if you forget everything, you need a floor. You have your perfect image of everything that you want, and then you have your floor. So when you don't want to go to work, when you don't want to knock doors, what is your floor? What will you require of yourself at the absolute bare minimum, no matter what is your floor? So we'll come up with 2 or 3 options that you guys can implement. When you don't want to be here, but you have to be here, what's your floor? Well, I think a really, really good one is 100 doors. Because that is, I think, the minimum thing that you can do, the absolute most basic expectation that you can require of yourselves when you don't want to be here. 100 doors. Because a body in motion stays in motion, so you have to keep going in order to keep going. Some of you might think that's stupid, and a few months ago I would have told you you're right, because I would have thought it was stupid too. I've actually read 3 books in the last 2 weeks, and I'm trying to read as much as possible now. I used to read a lot, I stopped, and now I'm reading again. And what I'm realizing is this is one of the most important things you can ever do. It has the biggest impact, I think, above all else. Anything that you're currently doing in your life, this is more important. Anything that you're currently reading, anything that you're currently thinking, anything that you're currently talking about, this is probably one of the most important things you can incorporate, and you can do it for free, and it'll take you 5 minutes a day. If we had talked about this a few months ago, I probably would have given you like a different viewpoint on it. But one of the things that I'm noticing is in every book I read, I'm reading a book right now, I'm almost done with it, it's called Think and Grow Rich. It was written 100 years ago, and it was written about Andrew Carnegie, and the guy who wrote the book is Napoleon Hill, and Napoleon Hill interviewed hundreds of rich and successful people and then wrote a book about it. The book is 100 years old, okay? And in this 100-year-old book, and the other two books that I've been reading recently, which one is from the 1990s and the other is from the early 2000s, they all have the same common theme, all of them, which is fascinating because they're written by different people in different eras, different centuries, and actually one of them is a book on psychology. So it's completely different than a book on money and wealth and finance. So completely different industries, right? The one thing, the one common denominator in all of these books is believing in yourself. It's the one common denominator. It is your thoughts, your thinking patterns, and how much of an impact thinking has on your success and or your failure. How powerful your thoughts are, and how your thoughts turn into things. And what you think about will come about, and what you believe in will actually eventually become true, or you'll have a higher success rate of achieving these things. But the one common denominator on all of these books is what you think about is the most important thing because it generates everything that comes about. And I'm realizing, like, wow, that's a huge, huge thing to identify across hundreds of years and dozens of people and different industries, different eras. They're all talking about the same thing, all of them. And that's what's been so fascinating. That's why I've just kept reading and reading and reading and reading, because I'm wondering, okay, how many books have this underlying message that your thoughts dictate everything that happens to you? And I keep finding it. I keep finding this pattern. And that's what's been so fascinating to me. That's why I keep reading, because I'm wondering, where else am I going to identify this? Where can I continue to find this? The belief that you have in yourself is the foundation for everything that you will achieve. And with that belief, and if you can refine that process and understand kind of the power that you hold within, then again, you can do anything you want. So one of them was, I can't do any more push-ups. So what we've recently incorporated is after every set, they have to do 10 push-ups. I found that after we do a set, they just get lazy, they get distracted, and now they're just fucking wasting time. And I don't want to do that. So now you do a set, you do 10 push-ups. So that gets pretty hard after about 20 to 30 minutes, right? So one of the kids continues to tell me, I can't do any more push-ups. He's on his face on the floor in my garage, and he's like, I can't do anymore, I can't do anymore, I can't do anymore. So I'm thinking, of course you can't do anymore. You're telling me you can't, I can't, I can't, I can't, I can't. The power that that word or those words have, it's incredible how powerful the words I can't is. And when you say things like I can or it won't, it affects your ability to move. It affects your muscles. And it affects your muscles because your brain powers your muscles, right? The book I'm reading right now is called Change Your Brain, Change Your Life. And it's a very complicated book, but it's actually not that complicated. But it requires like 100% thought. You really have to like really be into that book. Otherwise, you're going to get distracted. The reason why, if you say I can't, the reason why that has such an impact on your body is because your brain is literally saying, I can't do this. And because your brain powers your body, and your brain is telling you you can't do it, your brain, which also controls your muscles, is literally telling your muscles, you're done, you don't have any more energy, you can't do it. And because your brain is telling your muscles that you can't do it, you literally can't do it. But when you think I can, and you say I can do it, I can do this, your brain believes that it can do it. Your brain tells your muscles you've got a little bit more energy, because your brain all of your brains and bodies has a reserve. You all have extra energy for when you really need it that you need to learn how to tap into. There's another book by David Goggins. Read his book or watch any of his stories. Go online, YouTube, Google him. He'll talk to you about how he ran a 100-mile race. And by the time he got to 30 miles, this is a 100-mile ultra marathon, 100 miles. By the time he got to like 30 or 40 or 50 miles, his body was done. Like he was done. And he was so done that like his legs gave out. I think he broke one of his feet, one of his toes. He was bleeding. He had to like wrap his legs, like he couldn't move. He was able to complete that race and run an additional 50 miles after he thought he was 100% out of energy, out of stamina, out of everything necessary to complete that race. He thought he was done midway through, and he was able to work and continue on, and he finished that 100-mile race. And what he learned in that scenario was that when we think we're done, we're not done. The reason we think we're done is because we tell ourselves, I'm done. I can't do this shit anymore. And as soon as we think, I'm done, that thought turns into action, and your brain is sending thousands, if not millions, of signals all over everywhere it needs to go, and your body will then follow suit. And as a result, you are in fact done. But if you're able to tap into that reserve and you, in that moment, tell yourself, no, you're not done. I'm not done. I have more left. Next time, if any of you run, when you're running, when you're done, don't stop. Keep going. And prove to your body, prove to your brain that you are capable of continuing to go. If any of you work out, next time you can't lift anymore, go one more, right? Ed Milet, there's another guy you guys should Google. He's actually the guy that I got this from. Ed Milet was the one that I learned this from. So if you don't know who he is, you should look him up. He's really good. So he has this thing where he talks about one more. And every time he's doing anything in life, if he's about to stop, he does one more. And he does one more every single time. And what he's doing is he's training his mind, he's training his brain to understand that he is the one who's in control. When his brain says, oh, no, you're done. Okay, there's another part of your brain that you have to learn how to tap into that says, no, you're not done. You can do one more. And after a few of those, over and over again, over some time, you've now trained your brain that you are in control and you have full control over your actions and your thoughts and the things that are happening. And you are done when you say you're done, not when your brain says you're done. Now, that's a little confusing and contradictory when you really think about it. Kind of sounds like you got a couple personalities and people up there. But you have the good, you have the bad. You have the quitter, you have the winner. Or you have the loser and you have the winner. Both of those versions of you are in your head. Every single one of you has a loser in your head and a winner. And the loser wants to stop and the winner says keep going. But the voice of the winning person in your head needs to get louder. So the only way it'll get louder is you've got to give it power. This goes back to our meeting before. You have to give the good power. You have to give the good and the winning voice, the best version of you, you have to give it power. So how do you do that? Well, you got to practice these things. You got to be positive. You have to actually be open-minded to everything that I'm saying right now. Maybe reading books, maybe filling your head with things that are better and not things that will affect you negatively, as you all have the opportunity to practice this out in the field. You have the perfect job to do this. So forget about knocking doors for a second. You have the perfect job to learn how to control everything that goes on in your head, because you're going to go through a roller coaster of emotions all day long. You're going to go through it out there. We all do. So what you learn how to do out there will make you a winner or a loser for the rest of your life, because you're going to have scenarios where you win, you're going to have scenarios where you lose. You learn from the losses, but if you can pinpoint what went wrong out there, then you can practice it over and over again and eventually get good at it. Right? You've heard me say the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. Well, when we go out and we don't perform, but we don't learn why we didn't at a deeper level, not the intro, not, okay, how many doors, not the objection handling. I'm talking deep, a deeper level. What went wrong? Where did my thoughts go? Why did I do this? And I'm talking like you pay attention all day long, you can start to kind of navigate in the directions that you need to go. If you're watching a video and you all of a sudden your feelings change, why did that happen? I was watching a video on my way to work, and the video, I don't even remember what it was, but the video made me feel different than I felt 10 seconds ago. And it wasn't a bad feeling, but it was a different feeling. It wasn't a feeling that I needed to feel to get ready for work. It was more a feeling of nostalgia. That's what it was. A video popped up. I felt nostalgic. It reminded me of my childhood. And I thought, this is nice. I actually thought this. I thought, this is nice. This makes me feel good. But this doesn't get me ready for work. This doesn't get me ready for success. This doesn't get me ready for performing. And I think that if you guys were to take a step back and pay attention to the things you're doing during the day or before work, you may be watching something or doing something or listening to something that is nice, but it doesn't get you ready for work. And because it doesn't get you ready for work, it affects you while you're at work. Because feeling nostalgic is fun, feeling happy is good, and happy is good. But does happy get you ready for work? I don't know if happy is the best place to be for work. I think maybe motivated, inspired, driven, passionate, hungry, those are very different emotions than happy. They share the same, yeah, you feel good, but nostalgia feels good too, right? If I see a memory pop up on Facebook from 15 years ago, of an old me, of an old life, that may make me feel good, but does it get me ready for work? It might not. So really kind of end on this, pay attention to the things that you're doing. If you structure your days a little differently, you can do a whole bunch of different things that we talked about today, but pay attention to what you're doing and ask yourself, how do I feel? Okay, because that was what we talked about a couple weeks ago, but whatever I'm feeling, does it get me ready for what I'm about to do? And if the answer is no, you've now learned to identify the feelings. You've also learned which direction that feeling will take you. Feelings, thoughts, actions, right? Good action, bad action, regular action, inspired action, okay? But more importantly, you can shift it. How do you shift it? Well, now you need things to shift your feelings, thoughts, actions. So you watch a different video. You put on a song that you know you've programmed your brain to think work, work, work. You put on a song that you know will put you in the right state of mind to perform. So you have to do that as well. So I don't want to keep going, but you guys get where I'm going with this. Really, really pay attention to the shit I'm saying. Like really, really think deeper. Get outside the box. Really think about what I'm saying and start to incorporate one or two or three of these things. I promise you, my life is pretty good. I'm pretty happy. I'm a pretty positive person. I choose optimism over pessimism every single day of the week. I'm very rarely a stressed out individual. I don't really get anxious. I don't really get angry. And my life just in the last 4 weeks has changed because I'm looking at things differently than I've ever looked at them before because I'm understanding things that I've never really cared to learn to understand. But it all started with asking the question, why? That's the foundation. Why am I doing this? Why am I doing that? Why am I feeling this way? Why and how? And that's the foundation for you guys. And whatever it is you want to do, it all starts with why and how. Why am I doing it? How do I get there? Why am I feeling it? How did I get there? How do I get out of it? And why does it all matter, right? So I could go for another fucking 2 hours. I'm done. Everybody have a great day. Please, please, please pay attention to what I'm saying. It'll change your life. I promise you. I wouldn't waste your time if I didn't believe in it. But don't forget, I have class today, so it's on you guys. We're at 80 deals for the week. We need to hit 100. So I think we can do it. We're not far off. We've had a really good week so far, so we just got to keep it up. Oh, and shout out to Alexis for winning the ice bath and crushing it yesterday. 8 deals. Great job.